Hello and welcome to the Phantom Zone. I am your host Ghost, and I am back with the next entry in my MCU rewatch series, Doctor Strange. Now, full disclosure, before this rewatch, I thought that Doctor Strange was in the good movie tier category, along with movies like Ant-Man, Iron Man 2, and The Incredible Hulk. Good movies that are above mid, but not great movies like Avengers, Guardians of the Galaxy, or Captain America's Civil War. And to be honest, I still feel that way. But upon a rewatch, I have a newfound respect for it. One critique I have of this movie is that since this movie is introducing a whole new corner of this universe, there is a lot of exposition in this movie. For some reason, this movie feels the need to explain every single thing, and I guess it's important to establish the context of these things within this movie and establish concepts for this universe going forward, but upon a rewatch, I just couldn't help but to think how much of this movie is people explaining things to Steven. This is why I prefer Multiverse of Madness, because by that point we're already familiar with Doctor Strange, so I can just turn my brain off and follow him on a fun, fast-paced adventure story while watching him do cool wizard stuff. Speaking of being familiar with Doctor Strange, he's pretty much just Tony Stark. He's a rich white man who's an expert in his field, with an ego so big that he thinks he's better and smarter than everyone around him, who then gets humbled and becomes a hero. But this made me think, who's a worse person? Sure, Tony sold weapons to terrorists, constantly put Pepper through stressful situations and put her life in immediate danger multiple times, made countless enemies within the tech industry by using people and through him selling weapons, created Ultron, and manipulated a teenage boy into fighting the Avengers with him. But Strange somehow might be more of an asshole than Tony. He is just so arrogant and incredibly rude to everyone around him. This might actually be the first time where I rooted for the main character to not succeed. He absolutely deserved getting into that car accident. Not just because he's an asshole, but because he was looking at his phone while speeding on a winding one-lane highway by a cliff in the rain at night. And as soon as he wakes up after surgery, he blames the people who saved his life instead of himself. He never takes any accountability for the state of the nerve damage in his hands at all in this movie. Plus, the movie never forces him to, and only gets mad at the people trying to help him. He even crashes out on the one person who actually cares about him a little bit. Eventually, he apologizes to Christine after he's been stabbed and laying on the table as she's helping him, but honestly, if you ask me, he doesn't deserve her help. Or the little smooch she gives him on the cheek. Also, after the Ancient One dies, she finally tells him what he needed to hear this whole time.
Which is?
It's not about you.
Up until this point, he's learned to open his perspective to not just look at things in a scientific way, but in a spiritual and supernatural way as well. But he's still an arrogant asshole based on all of his appearances after this movie. I feel like if he were more mindful of others and acted more enlightened, it would have made for a stronger arc. Instead, it feels like he's as arrogant as ever, but he just has superpowers now. Like, he definitely should not have had the ego to try to cast the spell for Spider-Man. Another criticism I have of this movie is how forgettable the main antagonist is. Caecilius might be the most forgettable villain in the MCU. Just another power-hungry, dark copy of the protagonist, which is such a shame because Mads Mikkelsen is such a talented actor. I appreciate the subversion of making Baron Mordo Strange's ally, but his turn to villainy at the end is no surprise to any comic book fan. I remember the first time I watched this movie, I was pretty much just waiting for Baron Mordo to turn evil, and he did. I can also appreciate the appearance of Dormammu, and I think the final showdown between him and Strange is pretty cool and original. This is the first time we get to see a hero actually use an Infinity Stone, and the fact that it's the Time Stone makes it that much more interesting and dangerous. I feel like most people would agree that the best parts of this movie are the visual effects. I mean, each time where the sorcerers are manipulating matter, it's like Inception on LSD. And speaking of LSD, the sequence when the Ancient One opens up Strange's third eye felt like I was drugged, in a good way. Not to mention the light constructs, the astral forms, and the time freezing and reversing effects towards the end of the movie are all incredible. Also, the acting in this movie is really good. This is at the point where the MCU has become so successful they can pretty much cast whoever they want. This star-studded cast of Benedict Cumberbatch, Tilda Swinton, Rachel McAdams, Mads Mikkelsen, and Chiwetel Ejiofor collectively have dozens of award nominations and wins. Overall, I do think that this movie is a bit overrated. Most of my problems with this movie come from the character of Doctor Strange. I just really didn't find him that likable. His character arc also felt kind of lazy, like they were just trying to copy Iron Man's, but in a less redeemable way in the end. I still think that this movie is an above average MCU movie, but also still think that Multiverse of Madness is better. I guess we'll have to see if I still feel that way after I rewatch that movie, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss that video. Is that an insane take? I don't know. Let me know in the comments below. With that said, I think that's going to do it for me in this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.